I'm Kailey Leinz in Washington, but clearly all eyes are on New York today as SpaceX launches into public markets. A record-setting IPO of $75 billion priced at $135 a share. The stock opens on the NASDAQ 11% higher than that at $150. And as we speak, the shares are trading at $162 and change, up more than 20% in this public trading debut. This is now a more than $2 trillion company. And Elon Musk, at least on paper, is the world's first ever trillionaire. This is financial market history that we all have a front row seat to today. And of course, the markets are trying to digest this, along with the news that the U.S. and Iran may be close to inking a memorandum of understanding to prolong their ceasefire and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It is a lot for markets to digest today, so let's get a check on them right now as we turn to Charlie Pellet up in New York. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much, Kailey Leinz. Indeed, recapping, resetting. You heard it live right here on Bloomberg. Liftoff for SpaceX, 11:47 a.m. Wall Street time. Right now, first day of trading, we got SpaceX shares up 21%. SpaceX at 163.03. First day of trading after the company made history with that $75 billion IPO. Stock sold for $150 in its opening trade on NASDAQ, 11% above its $135 offering price. At that level, the stock turned Elon Musk into the world's first trillionaire. Right now, we have got the Dow, the S&P higher, NASDAQ in the red, though, right to the numbers with the S&P 500 index up 11 at 74.05. That is a gain of 0.1%. The Dow up 253 now, up by 0.5%. The NASDAQ 100 index holding on to a gain up under 0.1%. All of this with a VIX below 19, and the SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, up now by about 0.9%. Spot gold flat on the day, 42.10 the ounce, while West Texas Intermediate crude now retreating by 3.4%, 84.70 for a barrel of WTI, barrel of Brent 87.07, Brent crude down by 3.6%. Again, recapping here, S&P 500 index higher by 8, SpaceX, the big story of the day, right now at $160 a share, SpaceX up by 17.8%. I'm Charlie Pellet, Kailey Leinz. Our coverage continues. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you very much indeed. $160 stock right now, more than $2 trillion in market cap, meaning SpaceX, after already setting the record for the largest initial public offering of all time, is entering public markets as one of the largest stocks trading in public markets right now. And of course, as Charlie mentioned, Elon Musk on paper is the world's first ever trillionaire, already the world's richest man. He is getting significantly richer in terms of his wealth today with this debut that, by all accounts, at least right now, seems to be going fairly smoothly. We had questions about whether or not the plumbing was going to run into any clogs or issues here, but right now it does seem that this debut has been relatively smooth. Against SpaceX trading at right around $158 a share right now, up about 17.7% from that $135 IPO price. So let's get more on this now as we turn to Anthony Hughes up in New York. He's Bloomberg News equity capital markets reporter and is with us now. So Anthony, obviously we had some question as to how exactly this was going to go, given how unusually this pricing process was conducted. Elon Musk just said, the price is $135. There wasn't that typical price discovery process you would see in the IPO usually. So what does the trading debut now, with it significantly above that IPO price, tell us about how accurate this was?
Yes, well, I think the fact that the stock has gone up 11% initially and then it's up around 20% now is, suggests that it's been a fairly smooth process in the sense that the banks like to, manage the IPO in a way that delivers investors a return, and obviously there's a balancing act between, giving these investors, an acceptable return, but then also not giving away the stock, and it's a difficult balance sometimes, and it's one that can cause a lot of complaints that either the stock traded badly or it did too well. But 20% is a level which is usually indicative of a fairly smooth IPO. I mean, the difference here, though, is that this is such a large offering that there is a bigger risk that the amount of stock that was issued could, overshadow the amount of demand out there. But there was a lot of demand for the IPO, and maybe people are disappointed that they didn't get a lot of stock because there were some significant cutbacks. But I think this performance we're seeing so far suggests that it's a fairly balanced outcome.
Well, and to your point, obviously, this was an incredible amount of shares that were issued, $555 million. As we consider the demand picture, talk to us about the breakdown between retail and institutional investors here, at least in the IPO.
Yeah, there's a few different numbers floating around, but I think initially during this process, people were thinking that about 30% of the IPO might get allocated to retail. In the end, I think the number was more around 20%, and that's much higher than for a normal IPO, when maybe only 5-10% of the IPO would go to retail, and really the bulk of the shares would go to institutional investors. So the art of an IPO is probably making sure that that you get the stock into the hands of people who are long-term investors to a large degree. And obviously there's also a portion of the stock which is being traded here early on, which reflects it will be churned. It'll be the same stock being bought and sold, but that's sort of making a mark on the stock and helping to establish what the banks are hoping is a fair price. But really the idea with an IPO is to try and get the stock as much as possible into the hands of people who are long-term investors who'll support the company long-term. And in this case, SpaceX was pretty keen to get the shares in the hands of retail investors, and particularly small investors who have seen what Tesla has done over the long term, and in many cases would be quite keen to hold the stock long term. In maybe that some of those people were expecting an even bigger gain on the first day today, but for those people who are long term believers in Elon Musk, the first day's trading is not that important.
All right, Anthony Hughes covering ECM for us at Bloomberg. Thank you so much. And I want to bring into the conversation now Sana Pashankar, who covers space for us here at Bloomberg. So Sana, as we're looking here at SpaceX now trading just around $160 a share, as I've mentioned, this is a $2 trillion stock. Talk to us about what's behind that market capitalization. How much of this is space versus Elon's pitch on AI and compute power?
Yes. So a lot of this is, both AI and space. SpaceX's biggest, gamble, and what's really underpinning that valuation is orbital data centers, which are space-based data centers. And so Elon has really, pitched investors on the need for space-based data centers given the constraints on energy and resources on Earth. And so that's, it's a combination of both space and AI, but they're really projecting that 90% of, the potential future revenue of the company is based on AI computing and, doing that in space rather than here on Earth, which is, different than what SpaceX made its name for itself, which was by launching rockets and its Starlink service.
Well, and as you talk about the company's revenue, obviously there was a lot of hay made going into this IPO about how this looked like it was going to price at 100 times revenue, and this obviously is not a profitable company as it comes to public markets. Sana, just walk us through those figures and where they're projected to reach.
Yeah, so they are really pitching. It's a wild valuation for a company that, in 2025, it raked in about $19 billion in revenue. That's close to what Dollar Tree brings in, what Royal Caribbean Cruises brings in. But the reason that they're targeting such a high valuation is because of the projected future value of the company. Musk is saying that this is going to be such a valuable company because it's going to transform the future of AI. The rockets, SpaceX has contracts with NASA to send humans to the moon. The company is trying to also still send humans to Mars. So the valuation is not based on the current financial status of the company. It's the value that it can bring to humanity going forward.
All right, Sana Pashankar, Bloomberg News space reporter with us from New York. Thank you so much. And also in New York, but down at the NASDAQ where this trading got underway, we find Bloomberg's Yahaira Anand, who we'll check in with in just a moment as we consider SpaceX now trading at $162, almost $163 a share. We're up more than 20% from that IPO price of $135 a share. Remembering it raised $75 billion in that initial offering, valuing the company at just about $1.8 trillion. That valuation, that market cap, obviously significantly higher with the gain we are seeing today, north of $2 trillion. So let's go to Yahaira now at the NASDAQ for more. So Yahaira, Yahira, obviously we're setting records here. What is the vibe like at the NASDAQ right now? It seems everything in this process has gone pretty smoothly.
Yeah, pretty smoothly for the biggest IPO we've ever seen. And I will say the excitement, especially in the last hour as we were getting closer to trading, was palpable. You felt it here at the NASDAQ. They were all scrambling, making sure it all went off without a hitch. And then outside, you have all the Musk fans gathering, hoping to get a glimpse of him. But as you and I know, he was over in Texas. But as you said, SpaceX has officially begun trading, and with the stock opening at $150 a share above its $135 IPO price. And that gave investors an immediate gain of roughly 11%, but now you said it is trading above that. But this values a company at approximately just under $2 trillion, as you said, Kailey, but it instantly puts SpaceX among the most valuable companies in the world, more valuable than Tesla itself, of course, another Elon Musk-owned company, Meta, and even Saudi Aramco.
It's just incredible to consider. And of course, the paper wealth gains here for Elon Musk, even more incredible. A trillionaire, that's a lot of zeros behind his net worth on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Yahira, obviously, we still have just about 4 hours left in the trading day to go here. We know what happened when Meta debuted years ago. We saw a 20% prop like this, and we ended the day with not much to show for it. What will you be watching for over the course of the next few hours?
Well, yeah, as you said, the market has delivered its first verdict on SpaceX, but the trading day still we still have 4 more hours, as you said. So the focus will now shift to whether those gains can hold as this trading is underway and investors digest this historic public debut on Wall Street. We know that retail investors have been a huge part of this, so we'll see if they stick with Elon Musk throughout all of this.
All right, Bloomberg's Yahira Anand live at the NASDAQ as SpaceX debuts. Thank you so much. Again, this is a stock now trading at just about $164 a share, up 21.5% from its IPO, now valued at more than $2 trillion, a valuation that many have cast doubt on, including Jim Chanos, who has called this a valuation based on hopes and dreams. And the president and founder of Chanos and Company is in conversation right now with Bloomberg's Scarlett Fu and Tom Keene. Let's listen in.
Of the Enron time frame. How's that? In that I've always said that Wall Street has a printing press too, just like the Fed. It just takes a while to get going. And one of the things that I think SpaceX is ushering in 2026 is massive equity issuance. And historically, without a doubt, in the 20th and 21st century, anytime you have seen massive IPOs and secondaries relative to the size of the market or the economy, investors generally had been advised to be a little more cautious or reduce their risk. So the 1999, 2000, 2021, for the first half of that year, during the meme stock and SPAC craze, we are now going to break records in 2026 for IPOs and secondaries. And SpaceX, of course, is the granddaddy kicking it all off in a big way. But we're going to see OpenAI and Anthropic and probably some others. So we're going to shatter records. And so it's telling you that right now supply is meeting demand, which we haven't seen, by the way, in 23, 24, and 25. But we're seeing it now in 26.
I look, Jim Chanos, at this, and we've got a wonderful amount of time here with Mr. Chanos. So much to talk about. Scarlett's got some themes. I have some themes as well. Ed Ludlow fronted me. Did you see how he did that?
Yeah.
Ed Ludlow just stole my thunder here.
He needed to do it.
Chanos is thinking about the Neo Cloud. This is the team here. The New York Times article of a day or so ago. Is SpaceX worth $1.8 gazillion? XAI seems to be suddenly changing its business model from developing models like Grok to basically becoming an Ed Ludlow neocloud. The entire valuation rests on XAI's progress. The neocloud strategy is a commodity business that is valued far lower on the public markets. Jim Chanos to Isaac and the crew over at the New York Times. They're talking innovation, but you're predicting they'll go safe?
Well, what's really interesting, Tom, is that about a week, 10 days ago, the vast driver for the SpaceX TAM in their prospectus was the enterprise solutions for XAI, basically Grok, what the models produce, right, the software. And instead, they basically did a 180 pivot and said, we are going to lease out our capacity to Anthropic and Google. And that's the NeoCloud model, right? You're an equipment lessor. And that is a much lower valued business in the marketplace than being a model company or a hyperscaler. And we've been following data centers for a long, long time. And basically, it's a finance business, right? You're buying the chips from NVIDIA or somebody else, and then you're leasing them out to Anthropic or it's a rate of return business. It's not a super high-tech business. Yet 22+ trillion of the 29.5 trillion of SpaceX TAM in their prospectus was based on that business. And it just struck me as very, very odd that right before the IPO, they would pivot to a much lower margin and lower valuation business than the hopes and dreams, which you guys have mentioned, I've mentioned, based on producing these wonderful AI agentic software products from Grok. And it's one of many head scratchers about this deal.
At what point does financial reality, the kinds of things you were just talking about, breaking down the numbers, become more important and matter more than the storytelling, the hopes and dreams part of it? Because that's what Elon Musk excels at, and that's what people are buying in on.
So the question is does the Elon premium, is it Elon premium times 2 or Elon premium divided by 2? I think that's really the question here, because there are people who believe in Elon and have bid up Tesla accordingly to well beyond where I think most fundamental analysts think it's worth because of Optimus robots and autonomous driving and all that good stuff. And now you have another Elon hopes and dreams company with an even bigger valuation. And so does that double the value, or does it basically say, okay, well, I'm going to pick one? Because neither of them, let's face it, are being valued on their operations. SpaceX is, I believe, depending on what I heard in the green room, is probably now at about 110 times revenues. And just history tells us you just never really make much money buying equities at over 100 times revenues.
Yeah. Well, you, as we know, are inherently skeptical. Your company name's Kynikos, skeptic. You're not being a bull on SpaceX or Tesla or Elon Musk completely tracks. Is there anything in the SpaceX financials or Musk's management of the company that does impress you that you can say good job on?
Look, I think Starlink's a real business. We can look at their businesses. Again, we have to go on what's in the prospectus. Starlink's a real business. It's growing. It will probably continue to grow, although its growth is slowing. The launch business is still losing money after 22 years. And I'd be remiss from my fellow glass half empty participants if I didn't point out that the rocket that all of this depends upon, Starship, still has not achieved Earth orbit in 12 missions, right? And half of those ended up with some sort of mishap. So there's a lot riding on all of that. I think Starlink is a real business. It's worth a couple $100 billion, but the real hopes and dreams here is on XAI, which is, by the way, a company they bought in February for $250 billion in stock that the market is now valuing at probably well over $1.5 trillion. On
Bloomberg Television, on Bloomberg Radio, worldwide with us, Jim Chanos, thrilled he could join us today in this historic moment for his Wall Street and all of us around the world. So the short crew is said Tesla, somewhat like SpaceX, and I'm enjoying a 53% per year return since sort of the beginning of COVID, back 6 years or so. Again, Tesla's done better than good, and there's a modeled negative free cash flow right now. How long can the optimists of SpaceX keep this going without delivering a more conventional income statement?
Well, I think you answered the question, right? In years, if possible. But Tesla is trading at about 14 times revenues, right? It does have $100 billion in revenues, and it ramped revenues pretty quickly in 2019 and 2020. So there is a real business there in terms of large amounts of revenues and some cash flow. It's not trading at 110 times revenues. And that's a magnitude of difference, I think, that's really important for your viewers.
I've got, just for the first time, Scar, I've ever looked, the famed BQ function on the Bloomberg. And of course, Chanos nails the price to sales because he studied Tom Galvin years ago. I've got right now I've got a number of 27 times revenue on the BQ screen. It may be a little higher than that. I've never seen a stock like that.
So I'm glad you guys bring up Tesla because there's this expectation that Tesla and SpaceX will somehow merge or will be combined in the same way that XAI and SpaceX got combined and merged. How are you thinking through that? What does that mean for investors who believe in the Tesla business but are maybe skeptical of SpaceX?
Well, again, if it happens, and I have no idea if it will happen or not.
Does Elon need to make it happen?
No, he doesn't need to make it happen. He can keep them separate if he wants. It's solely up to him. We all know that. But it would be an equity for equity deal. And so I don't know, how much value that would add in terms of cutting overhead is not the story here, right? It's really what these companies will produce in the next 5-10 years.
I look at this, Jim Chanos, as an historic moment. And the answer is to the cycles. And I opened up talking about Enron and all that. I want you to talk about the short business right now is a hugely important part of financial society in this great bull market we're in right now. There's a lot of scars out there. How do you keep that going when you see SpaceX right now? How do you keep a short model going with bull sectors and a bull trend in the broader market?
So through 2023, we were running outside money. Now we run our own money. We've been hedged in the short world since 1996. Basically, our view has been we don't know where the market's going, and nor does anybody else. So we'd rather be long the market and short our collection of radioactive companies, if you will. And that's been a very profitable business. And it's been a very profitable business for the last few years, too, despite the market hitting new highs, because there's been a lot of stocks, as you guys know, that have lagged dramatically. So our view is always be long the market and be short some percentage of companies with bad businesses. And I think that's nothing I would recommend your viewers to do at home, all right? I don't recommend short selling for most people. It's really for the pros for lots of reasons, things like getting an interest rebate on your shorts and a variety of other things. But I will say that one of the things right now that is very apparent is that insurance is cheap. And it's cheap for all the reasons.
I don't want to interrupt because Scarlett wants to get 4 more questions in. Is SpaceX radioactive?
We'll have to see where it settles out. You can't short it right now anyway, so it's a moot question. I mean, I think that anything trading over 100 times revenues is of our interest. Historically, returns have been awful at those valuations.
You mentioned earlier the dot-com bubble. Are we doing dot-com bubble 2.0 right now?
Oh, this is much bigger. The AI build-out relative to the TMT build-out of 99, 2000 is multiples, even as a percent of the economy, GDP. And an important thing to point out is that when you get these CapEx booms in technology, they're tremendously accretive to earnings. And there's a simple accounting reason why. That is, when Tom buys chips for his data center from NVIDIA, NVIDIA recognizes that as revenue and profit. Tom capitalizes those expenses and writes them off over 5 to 10 years. And so you have a mismatch where the same dollar in a CapEx boom is recognized as profits by one entity and deferred by the same people expending the dollar. And that happened in 90, 98, 99, 2000. From the middle of 98, S&P operating earnings rose 30% to the middle of 2000 over the 2 years. From the middle of 2000 to the middle of 2001, when order books got pulled, S&P earnings dropped 40%.
Was that too much accounting for a Friday? I think so.
I'll leave it. I'll stop at that.
Jim, let me ask you one last question before we let you go, because this is Bloomberg Money after all. How do you approach your own financial planning? How does it compare with how you advise or manage money for others?
Well, it's mostly in my business and in ancillary things, since I'm semi-retired right now, and I'm advising people, not directly running their money. So it's pretty conservative. But
so you set and forget, or you do make a lot of changes?
It's mostly passive. Again, for most people, I think that's the way to go.
Jim, we got our merch over here. Scarlett's got her Knicks jacket here, ready to go.
Let's go Knicks. Knicks in
She
5.
and Anne-Marie Horton are going to San Antonio. Why aren't we seeing you in the front row quickly here?
Well, first of all, I live in Bucks County, Tom, so I'm outside of Philly.
So you're doing a 76ers.
Secondarily, my sons who were born in Manhattan are diehard Knicks fans, but I'm a Milwaukee Bucks fan. I'm a cheesehead.
I knew I was going to hear that. We just had to get that for the record as well.
Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jim Chanos, founder and president of Chanos & Company. Coming up on
Chanos in conversation with Scarlett Fu and Tom Keene on this debut of trading day for SpaceX. Of course, a $135 a share IPO price, valuing the company at $1.8 trillion. We are well north of those figures now. SpaceX trading at just about $165 a share, up 22% from the price of that initial offering. And that is really the big news of the day on Wall Street. But we're also following news here in Washington. I want to mention briefly as we track progress toward a memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran. We're now getting confirmation from Pakistan, which is serving as the mediator between these two, that a final agreed upon text of a peace deal has been reached. This according to the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, saying that they are fully aware of incessant misinformation being waged by those who want to sabotage this peace deal. But again, he says, setting aside the noise, we can confirm that a final agreed upon text of the peace deal has been reached, and Pakistan is now working closely with both sides to finalize the next steps. He ends his post on X with, peace has never been this close as it is now. So how is the hope of peace and, of course, the hopes and dreams of SpaceX and a $1 trillion company landing in financial markets today? Let's get a check on where we're trading now as we turn to Charlie Pellet up in New York. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much, Kailey. The number you want to know, SpaceX right now surging by 21.5%, up and running now for roughly 40 minutes. Stock sold for $150 in its opening trade on NASDAQ at 11:46 a.m. Right now, we do have SpaceX trading at 164.83, again up by 22.3%. Our coverage will continue. The jump in the stock turned Elon Musk into the world's first trillionaire, also sent SpaceX's market cap above $2 trillion. Equity markets higher right now. Oil selling off. We've got the S&P 500 index at 74.21, higher by 27 points now. That is a gain of 0.4%. The Dow up 305, up 0.6%. NASDAQ Composite Index up 38 for NASDAQ. That is a gain of 0.1%. Our Mag 7 Index trading lower, down 0.5%. The SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, up 1.6% now. The VIX below 19, a 10-year at 4.47%. The 2-year, 4.07%. The 30-year, 4.97%. Gold up 0.1%, 42.17. Crude trading lower. West Texas Intermediate crude down now by 3.3%, 84.79 a barrel on WTI. And again, repeating the headlines out of Pakistan. Pakistan's Prime Minister says an agreed upon text of a U.S.-Iran peace deal has been reached. His remarks came in a post on X. Recapping, stocks higher, S&P up 0.3%, SpaceX now up 22.9%. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcast. I'm Charlie Pellet. Kailey Leinz. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, watching Wall Street. Thank you so much. And here in Washington, we're watching Wall Street too. And that just doesn't mean us here on Bloomberg paying attention to the SpaceX IPO, but they're watching on Capitol Hill as well, including Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who notes on X just a few moments ago, Elon Musk just became the world's first trillionaire. The typical American household would have to work more than 11 million years to make Elon Musk's level of wealth. She ends this post by saying, we need a wealth tax. Because yes, it is the case that Elon Musk on paper right now is a trillionaire thanks to this debut of SpaceX, his space rocket, satellite, internet, artificial intelligence company, juggernaut of a company that's now valued at more than $2 trillion as it trades right now at about $165 a share after that initial $135 IPO. So let's get more on this as we turn to Craig Trudell, our managing editor of Global Business Americas here at Bloomberg. And Craig, obviously, while you hold that title now, you also led for a long time Bloomberg's autos coverage. You are very familiar with Elon Musk as the CEO of Tesla, which obviously, while being an auto company first and foremost, also in financial markets and public markets, was the way to bet on Elon Musk. We now have a second channel for those bets in SpaceX. Whether or not these two get rolled together at some point, I'm not sure. But your reaction, please, to the appetite we are seeing for SpaceX as it debuts today.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to see, yes, a strong debut for SpaceX, a rotation maybe a little bit out of Tesla, which is something that we were really braced for, but not anything disastrous. I mean, we've seen, on an intraday basis, the stock, fall about 3%. But as of this moment, it's a little less than that, about 2.8. This is a company that, has been quite volatile over the years in its own right. And if, that track record applies to SpaceX, then we should be sort of in for a bumpy ride here.
Well, certainly so. It's still Elon Musk that we're talking about, a visionary maybe, but a lot of volatility we know can come with that. Walk us through the unique nature of the way this IPO happened. The idea that this price was set. It wasn't your typical price discovery. Musk said the price is $135 of a share. He got that, and obviously investors are buying this stock for more than that as trading gets going here. But how should we consider the way in which the valuation for this company was set? We were just listening to Jim Chanos talking about how skeptical he is of valuing a market cap at something 110 times revenue for a company that isn't profitable.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating in that, this is also a company that, put out incredible numbers in their S1 about, total addressable markets and talking about space-based economy. To hear Musk talk about the potential for this company and to hear people like Jared Isaacman, the head of NASA, he gave an interview very recently about this notion that the space economy has been something that's been sort of highly speculated about, hyped up as something massive, and yet the follow-through has been very minimal. I will say, in defense of Musk and SpaceX, with the exception of Starlink, there's been very little in the way of progress toward making any money in space. We have seen SpaceX make progress where others haven't, but I think where you really run into trouble looking at this company is actually the AI portion, and the fact that was just such a very recent addition to the SpaceX story maybe makes things kind of muddy and more complicated than they might have otherwise been had this just been a space company with a solid satellite business.
Well, a late addition, yes, but one that already does have some commitments tied to it. It seems we all saw the news of Google's contract with SpaceX that's going to be, nearly $1 billion per month, assuming that SpaceX can actually deliver on the computing power that has been promised. How far do we have to go to SpaceX actually realizing these capabilities, actually having them to offer customers, not just like Google, but Anthropic is a big customer too, right?
Yeah, the two of them in sort of rapid fire fashion, reach these deals in the lead up to the IPO, and surely that's helping sort of buoy sentiment. But if we think about, Musk's ambitions to not just be a sort of infrastructure partner to the likes of Google and Anthropic, and actually getting in the game itself and building a competitive chatbot and AI capabilities that can be monetized, that's where we've seen, real failures on Musk's part. And he's been pretty open about that, actually, on X, this notion that they sort of started XAI all wrong and are kind of starting over. It was, really unusual and very like him that he would be so sort of candid about that. And yet maybe raises some questions about, just how quickly this will be a company that's a major player and actually, things beyond partnering with companies that have had success like Anthropic.
Well, and you've just made the point, Craig, about XAI getting rolled in to SpaceX. So would you be surprised if we see Tesla rolled in to this larger company too?
Just going off the trend that we've seen this rolling up of Musk's companies, it does feel like that's also something that people quite close to Musk have not shied away about, speaking to. this notion that that would be not even just a sort of open secret, but just something that people are very comfortable theorizing about, tells me that that it does feel like it's likely. I also think it's interesting in that we've heard Musk say, over and over again that he wishes he had more control over Tesla. One of the ways to sort of address the fact that he's not particularly comfortable with his command of that company would be to combine these, because that is an aspect of SpaceX's structure that is quite different, where he has a special class of stock that Tesla didn't have when it went public. If they were to combine, they would sort of rationalize that and give him the ability of stock that protects him from any activism or challenges to his sort of rule of the company.
All right, Bloomberg's Craig Trudell, thank you so much. SpaceX right now trading at $164 a share. We're up nearly 22% from that $135 IPO price. Quite the debut we are seeing for one of the world's largest companies by market cap at this point, after a record-setting $75 billion IPO. And of course, that is some of the big news of the moment, but I also want to return to the breaking news we brought you just moments ago pertaining to a potential memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran, as Pakistan, the mediator between these two parties, says that an agreed-upon text of a peace deal has indeed been reached. So for more, we turn to Bloomberg Washington correspondent Tyler Kendall, who is here with me in our D.C. studio. So Tyler, throughout this conflict and its attempt to find resolution, we consistently do not hear the same things from all of the parties. The U.S. and President Trump will say one thing, Iran says something different. In this instance, do we actually get the sense that everyone might be on the same page this time?
It depends which parts we're talking about. This is positive momentum in the right direction, because now we actually have all three sides saying that progress has been made. You have Pakistan coming out saying that a final agreed upon text has been reached. You had Iran's foreign minister here saying that they've never been closer towards peace. And then, of course, you have the White House, which has long maintained that they are getting closer to a deal. The issue is we're getting conflicting reports about what's actually in the memorandum of understanding. A senior administration official earlier today confirmed to us that there are at least 5 points that we know of. The first is the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which both sides have said that they are working towards. The question here becomes, though, is that Iranian state media earlier today did report that it would reopen, but said that would only happen after the U.S. lifts its naval blockade. We know that the U.S. would like to keep that leverage in place until the Strait of Hormuz reopens. And Iran also seemed to suggest that they would like to maintain some degree of control over the strait, which would not probably meet the U.S.'s definition of freedom of navigation. So that's perhaps one of the biggest sticking points in front of us. The others come from the senior administration official saying that maybe we could get some announcement around what potential curbs on Iran's nuclear program would actually look like, including the removal of Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, and that Iran would dismantle, was the word, its nuclear program. What does that really look like in practice? Our understanding has been that those firmer details would come at a later date, that this would be a phased proposal. So there's going to be maybe some questions there. There's so much more that we could go through here, but financial relief, Iran has said financial relief needs to come first. Senior administration official telling us today financial relief is only coming after Iran meets its targets for the deal. That includes unfreezing the assets, at least half of them, oil sanctions. That's another disconnect. And then lastly, the U.S. says that Iran will end its support of proxy militia groups. Iranian state media today said the ceasefire needs to extend to Lebanon, which would seem to infer that they are still backing, of course, the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah and Israel's front against them.
All right, Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall, great reporting. Thank you so much. And of course, this is all coloring the G7 summit to be held in France next week. President Trump is planning to attend. Tyler will also be there covering it for us here on Bloomberg, and we're looking forward to that coverage very much. Of course, Tyler owns Washington coverage. Ed Ludlow owns tech and space coverage as the co-host of Bloomberg Tech, and he's here with us now on this debut day for SpaceX. Ed, I feel like this is your Super Bowl. It probably is most people in financial markets Super Bowl, as we're setting records here, not just in terms of IPO, but in the size of this debut. Talk to me about the demand here, as we had questions as to whether or not this price was set correctly, given the unusual lack of price discovery that happened, whether or not 555 million shares being issued was going to be met with adequate demand? Are we seeing evidence that perhaps the appetite was even more robust than initially thought?
Well, it was massively oversubscribed on the institutional side, which accounted for 80% of the offering, and on the retail side as well, which was about 20%. And we can get into like more of the specifics of how that sliced and diced. It's trading right now 167.50, 24% above the IPO price of 135. What we reported over the last 5 days is that it has been Elon Musk himself, along with Brett Johnson, the CFO, and Gwynne Shotwell, the president, that really controlled and dictated the terms literally, as opposed to like the bankers. Bankers have a lot of influence in IPO processes, but this time, part of the rationale, as it was explained to me, is that if you set it early, ahead of a roadshow without a range, it is atypical and unusual, but you basically remove the leverage of the long-only asset managers, the big institutions that would account for most of the order book anyway. It just made things on their terms. There are big questions about valuation long-term, right? It's come to IPO at 92 times or something like that sales, but that was how it was done. And so, there are lots of retail investors that did get an allocation, some evidence that they are people that are also Tesla retail shareholders, anecdotal evidence, I'd say. But now there are lots of people that are, reluctantly, and I guess not reluctantly is not the right word. They don't want to be buying in the open market, but they are, they kind of have to be.
Yeah, perhaps some nose holding going on here. To your point,
Yes,
Ed, about
way,
valuation, walk us through what the thesis is here in terms of the total addressable market that SpaceX is saying that it can reach, and what tangibly the company is now going to need to be able to accomplish from a technology standpoint to be able to deliver on that, deliver what it's promised to customers like Anthropic and Google.
So like right now on a fully diluted basis, this is a company that has a value of more than $2 trillion. And they are pitching a story about a future where they are many things, a diversified business, which most of is selling AI software, right? They say there's a $28.5 trillion addressable market, and 26.5 of that is what they are calling in an umbrella or bucket of enterprise AI. But in the near term, all of that is predicated on them being able to get Starship, which is on paper the most powerful rocket and launch system humankind's ever developed, to work regularly and reusably. They have done 12 test flights. They are closer, in the coming weeks to doing a 13th test flight, but they've never landed or both parts of it, the booster and the spacecraft on top, back on Earth. They have to do that if they are able to put into orbit satellites that are data centers. And that is kind of the middle step that gets them to that distant future where humans are living on Mars, and they're able to generate most of their revenues and income from AI. It's not straightforward. And that has been a part of like how much you place a value of 2030 to 2050, not right now on historic IPO Friday.
Well, and it's also just so interesting to consider the circular nature of this, if you will, because we're talking about what SpaceX will need to do to deliver for customers like Anthropic, which at least in some parts of the wider SpaceX business here, if you're considering Grok, which obviously is no Claude, there is still competition there.
Yes.
Just speak to that, Ed, and how all of this is setting the stage for Anthropic and also OpenAI's ultimate public debuts that we're expecting later this year.
So state of play is that Anthropic has filed confidentially with the SEC for IPO, and so has OpenAI. SpaceX, through its XAI arm, SpaceX owns XAI, it's a subsidiary, a wholly owned subsidiary of SpaceX, did a deal with Anthropic where Anthropic pays SpaceX more than $1 billion a month to rent compute capacity from a data center, a specific data center that it built in Tennessee. On paper, if you read the prospectus and the vision that we just outlined where SpaceX makes most of its money from selling AI software, that would make them on paper a complete rival and competitor to Anthropic. But this is what's so interesting. A lot of phone calls in the last 5 days from existing SpaceX investors saying it's so important to talk about how they've done this. They have data center capacity that was available. XAI and SpaceX, the parent, are very good at building data centers quickly and running them, operating them efficiently on a very competitive dollar per token basis. So why not rent it out and make money? And that's the near-term story that will dictate right now the stock performance and the valuation, because the rest of it is so far away in another galaxy, etc.
Excellent pun. And that's, of course, as we consider the performance as a public company. But Ed, you were just talking about speaking to existing SpaceX investors. This is obviously not a new company. It's more than 2 decades old. It's existed in private markets for some time. And there was a long time in which Elon Musk was saying we can just stay reliant on private capital. Walk us through that evolution and whether or not this is going to be a new model going forward as we consider more robust private markets.
Yeah, I think 2002 SpaceX was seeded of about $27 million, and the goal was to make a rocket booster land back on Earth and be reusable. And now, clearly, as we've just discussed, the story's really changed. In 2010, when Tesla went public, the public company that Elon Musk is also CEO of, SpaceX had $1 billion valuation, and rapidly, kind of 2023 to 2025 in the private markets, its valuation kept growing because it just dominated this business of launching payload to orbit. And then Starlink, which is a internet service, but it's powered by a constellation of satellites around planet Earth, has very quickly become cash flow positive, a cash generator. So like you'll see all the Bloomberg stories and read the prospectus and say like how unprofitable SpaceX is and how distant it is. But in its connectivity business, actually it's a cash generating part of the business. And so, it's just a crazy story. We don't have, you could do an entire 24 hours on Bloomberg television and radio to explain the history of it. But again, the point of the rocket business is that next gen rocket, it needs to work for all that other intergalactic, out of this world stuff to come true.
Well, I feel like Ed probably is going to end up spending 24 hours on Bloomberg television and radio today. You're working hard. Thank you so much, Bloomberg Tech co-host Ed Ludlow. We appreciate it. I would just point out, as we consider the demand for SpaceX shares that appears to be out there, Robinhood says it saw record-breaking traffic today, blaming that for some latency and intermittent issues customers were experiencing, though they said the systems have recovered and their teams are monitoring it closely. But clearly retail is a massive factor in this debut. And of course, this debut is now a massive factor in financial markets. So let's get a check on where we're trading overall as SpaceX trades at just about $168 a share. Charlie Pellet is keeping watch from New York. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much, Kailey. Indeed, SpaceX right now up by 24.3%. We've got two major stories that we're following for you, the SpaceX IPO, and of course, diplomatic efforts in the Middle East. Hopes for a breakthrough are lifting stocks as well today. Earlier this hour, we had Pakistan's Prime Minister saying an agreed-upon text of a U.S.-Iran peace deal has been reached. Prime Minister's comments coming in a post on X. He says, quote, "Peace has never been this close as it is now." The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ 100 index all very much in the green. S&P up 26 to 74.21, up 0.4%. Dow Industrials up 312, up 0.6%. NASDAQ up 45, up by 0.2%, while the NASDAQ 100 index up by 0.5%. Small cap shares outperforming. The Russell 2000 index of small cap shares up now by 1.1%. The SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index up by 2%. The VIX just below 19 with a 10-year 4.48%. Spot gold flat on the day, 42.13 the ounce, while West Texas Intermediate crude down now by 3.7%, 84.50 the barrel. Brent 86.97 down by 3.8%. SpaceX surging first day out, up now by 24.8%. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News now wherever you get your podcast. I'm Charlie Pellet, Kailey Leinz. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. As Charlie just mentioned, SpaceX now up nearly about 25% from its $135 IPO price. Right now, shares trading north of $168 a share, $169. We are at session highs. Again, 25% gain from that IPO price. This is now a more than $2 trillion company. And as we were just discussing with Ed Ludlow, as we consider the valuation thesis here, there are many parts to this business. Yes, there is the AI story that SpaceX seems to be relying on, the idea of bringing computing power to space and space-based data centers. There's also Starlink and the satellite internet business. And there are the rockets themselves that Elon Musk still eventually wants to take people to Mars. And he spoke about that space ambition in particular from Houston earlier today ahead of this debut.
Not just a few astronauts. I mean, you, literally you. If you watch, whoever you are watching this, SpaceX wants to be able to take you to the moon, take you to Mars, and ultimately beyond. And I'm confident at this point that with the incredible team that we have here at SpaceX, that we will do that for you.
So let's get the take from someone who has actually been to space and can speak on this with a great deal of insight. Commander Leroy Chiao is with us on Balance of Power, a former NASA astronaut and commander of the International Space Station. He's also founder of the space training company One Orbit and author of a new book that comes out on June 16th, Dinner with an Astronaut, Serving Space Stories Past, Present, and Future. Commander Chiao, it's the lunch hour, so I guess a lot of people get to listen to an astronaut as they have lunch today. Walk us through what you see in terms of demand for the space economy and whether, therefore, a stock that can debut in public markets at a $2 trillion market valuation is justified in your mind.
Sure. It's, of course, that everybody is touting the space economy and how huge it is and how much huger it's going to get. But I would caution, of course, you have to be careful where you invest. You know, obviously, satellites are very much, have been for many decades, been money makers. Rocket launchers, people like SpaceX have dominated the launch industry, bringing prices down. And SpaceX, of course, is getting closer to having an operational Starship, right? So Starship is the largest rocket ever launched. They've actually caught that booster 3 times. They've demonstrated now that they've got their heat shield problem pretty much figured out. Starship last time came back and hovered over the ocean before, flopping into it and demonstrating that it too can do that burn maneuver to be captured softly and reused. So, they're making good progress. There's a lot of news out there that says that they're not, but they actually really are. And it's astounding. And, SpaceX, of course, pioneered catching first stage boosters of the Falcon 9. And those of us in the business were really skeptical, said, well, that's not easy to do. You got to carry extra fuel. How are you going to economically refurbish and reuse them? But that's exactly what they've done, bringing launch costs down from what used to be $150 to $200 million to launch a satellite down to around 35 or so, right? So my point is, don't count Elon Musk out. He's tried all these things that the experts, whether it be in space or in electric vehicles, said would never work, and he's pulled it off. So I think Starship will become operational. It's going to be key, as you guys have been saying, in launching and delivering all those Starlink and data center satellites to orbit, but I think it's going to happen.
Well, and commanders, I have this conversation with you from Washington. How much of the thesis here is predicated on SpaceX maintaining a strong relationship on a contractual basis with the U.S. government, with NASA? Or I guess to ask it another way, does NASA need SpaceX? Is this relationship now too intrinsically tied together?
I think they absolutely need SpaceX because, NASA people, engineers quietly on the side have just been blown away by Starship and the progress that has been made by Starship. And, I think that's going to be so much less of an expensive rocket once it becomes operational than the current SLS rocket that is a more traditional throwaway rocket. I think Starship is going to be disruptive. It's going to dramatically further bring down cost of launching things into space. And so, yes, I think that they are intrinsically tied together. It's going to be part of the future exploration program for sure, building a moon base. And of course, Elon Musk said he started SpaceX back in 2002 because he wants to build these Mars colonies, and I'm not sure why he wants to. I mean, he talks about being a multiplanetary species for survival, but I'm glad he does. I'm glad he does want to.
Well, Commander, in our final minute here, Elon Musk has also obviously not been shy of failure when it comes to SpaceX. They celebrate sometimes rockets blowing up, and I wonder if you think failure is going to be more difficult in terms of being part of the process, yes, but how it will be taken now that this is a public company and investors are watching.
Sure. So if you've developed a new rocket or any kind of high performance vehicle, you know that the fastest way to develop it is also the most expensive way to develop it. That is, you test, break it, fix it, test, break, fix, and you just iterate around that. And that's the fastest way you're going to get a new vehicle, also the most expensive. Now, NASA takes the opposite approach, because that's why it took so long to get SLS and Orion flying, literally a couple of decades. Is because they couldn't afford to have a failure. Because if they had a failure, their program could easily get canceled by the Congress, right? So
different scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah, Commander, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Commander Leroy Chiao, author of the new book, Dinner with an Astronaut, serving space stories, past, present, and future. The future is now. SpaceX is trading $172 a share, up 27% from the IPO price.